But the best thing you could possibly do is work on getting to know you. You will become that well-rounded, more successful person because, like we said, success, you define it. You can't define what success is for you if you don't know yourself.
In this episode, I'm interviewing Drew Townsel, the founder of Intersect Magazine and an associate at Chanel. As her online personal brand is centered around being overly ambitious, I'll be asking about her thoughts on passion, purpose, motivation, and more. Stay tuned. I'm here with the overly ambitious Drew Townsel.
Hi.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so
lovely.
much. Thank you. You look lovely. Thank you so much for being here today and for making the time.
Of course.
I know you are extremely busy.
We're used to it.
Yeah. So you are the founder of an editorial-driven digital publication called Intersect Magazine. So can you tell us a little bit more about Intersect and its specific intended audience?
Yes. So Intersect Magazine, like you said, it's a Gen Z focused digital publication. So it's focused on curating all the things that are actually cool in Gen Z culture. Essentially, the idea came from a lot of other publications and digital publications not truly having the pulse on what Gen Z cares about, whether that's culture and society or beauty or style or music or film and TV. I feel like a lot of publications were geared towards other generations and then like millennials for a long time. And then they sort of had their millennial writers start covering what Gen Z cared about because Gen Z, a lot of us are too young to actually have those editor positions and curate those lists and write those op-eds and stuff like that. So it was supposed to be, and it is, a space for Gen Z to own Gen Z, talk about Gen Z. So for Gen Z, by Gen Z. Yeah.
So what inspired you to start this magazine? Have you always been interested in media entrepreneurship?
So essentially, I started it like about 6-7 years ago now, and it did not start as this like Gen Z culture publication. It was actually all music coverage. So we did interviews, album reviews, just like lists of new music releases. And when I started that in like, it was like either 2018 or 2019. It was because I wanted to work in the music industry. And so it was my way, literally in high school, to have something before I got to college that would be on my resume so that I could intern at record labels and stuff.
That's smart.
And it worked. But then as I did my internships in college in culture marketing, I kind of just realized like, one of my bosses called me the Gen Z encyclopedia. And I was like, you know what? It would be so cool and so me if Intersect turned into like the Gen Z encyclopedia.
I love that. So what is the first step that you would give to anybody who wants to start a magazine?
I would say to really make sure it reflects something that you care about, you're passionate about, and to make sure that you do research on that particular topic. Don't kind of just like free flow into journalism, because I think journalism is shifting a little bit into being a little bit less ethical and a little bit less serious. And I feel like it's a time where it's really necessary in our generation for media literacy, this, that, and the third. So if you're creating something, you need to make sure you know what you're talking about, you know what you're saying, and you know who your audience is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in order to be in charge of a magazine that's catered towards Gen Z, you have to stay culturally relevant, and you've spoken about this. And obviously we are Gen Z, so I'm sure most of that comes naturally to you. But I think understanding the culture versus like actually driving the culture are two separate things, right? So what are some ways that you ensure that the content that you're putting out consistently is representative of Gen Z culture?
Yeah, I think one thing, I have a really strong pulse, and as like editor-in-chief, I don't let anything get published that doesn't really fit us and what we stand for. And like you said, like anything that does not truly have the pulse. Like even when it comes to relationships with publicists, this, that, and the third, like you'll get excited because a really big like PR agency or a really big brand might reach out to you and be like, hey, I'll send you product. Like we want coverage, da, 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 da. Can you add me to your new edit? But it's like, no, my job as editor, especially when I'm speaking so strongly about knowing what we care about, is to be like, I don't care if you're a luxury brand. I don't care if this, that, and the third. a heritage brand doesn't necessarily fit with Gen Z. You know what I mean? We do a lot of things differently. So being able to like weed through stuff like that and really stay true to that and kind of not sell yourself out, if that makes sense. Like, that's big. But I also do want to give a lot of credit to my team. I have always, over the past years, had like a rotating list of extremely good writers. And they've all, like I said, been Gen Z. They've all mostly been like 18 or even 17 through 24 throughout the years. And so we all kind of are writing about stuff that we know. And maybe we're all masters at something else. Like someone might really know beauty. Someone might really know film and TV. I don't know film and TV. So I always listen to this thing that Emma Grede, the founder of Good American, said. And she said that one of the things that made her so successful is like knowing what she does not know and what she's not good at and being able to create a team of people who fill those gaps. Like that's how you create a really strong brand, publication, whatever. And I feel like I started doing that really well, and that's when I saw the growth come through.
Yeah, definitely. Like leveraging the different strengths of your team. Yeah. So how do you see digital and print media evolving for Gen Z? Because I have heard some predictions about like print media maybe making a comeback.
I think print plays a different role right now, though. I think that the people who are getting into print sometimes prefer like a magazine as like a souvenir versus like an actual way for them to consume their information and learn what's cool. I don't know if people are actually reading them for real. And I'm going to say that because I think that I could be partially guilty of that as well. Like I would rather read an article digitally just because it's easier. I might read it on the go. I might see one of the social media pages of a publication post something and then, you know, you click the link in the bio and then you can easily quickly read it. And I tend to do that versus going to iconic magazines or whatever, getting the magazine and then letting that be the way that I learn about all of the new stuff or whatever. But I think that people do like them as souvenirs. I think that people like them as coffee table books. And I think that it sounds cute and it sounds good to romanticize. Let's get back into having a print magazine, or like, I know I've seen people talk about like the importance of media literacy and getting into like a newspaper reading again and stuff like that. But it's like, are you really doing it because that's the easiest way for you to consume that information, or are you doing it because it makes you feel old-timey, old soul, cute, this, that, and the third? So I feel like you kind of have to watch that with our generation, because some stuff just seems cute to post on TikTok. And I think a really big thing with media is like, you have to just be honest with the times. Like you can keep complaining and being like, a lot of stuff is so consumer driven right now. A lot of stuff is advertisement based. Like the purpose of journalism has changed. But it's like the publications that are going to keep moving are the ones that get with it and figure out how do we communicate with Gen Z and the younger generations that do stuff differently.
Yeah, how do we evolve?
Yeah, instead of constantly like trying to get the generation to do something their way.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's a really good point. So aside from owning a whole business as a 22-year-old, you also work at Chanel. So I'm curious about your role at Chanel as a transformation associate. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so I can't say a bunch, but I am an associate on the transformation team at Chanel. I interned there last summer, and I was blessed to be able to come back and support their team. So it's basically like long-term corporate strategy. But yeah, super exciting. Can't say a lot because a lot is on the hush, but there's definitely a lot of duality of being like the corporate girl, but then also like owning your own business. And I would love to get into that.
Oh yeah, and we're going to get into that. But I do want to know, how were you able to secure a position at such a coveted luxury fashion house straight out of college? Do you have any tips maybe for college students or recent graduates who are looking to get into similar careers?
Yes, definitely. For the people who follow my TikTok and stuff, you always hear me talking about career advice, and I'm always happy to be the person that does not gatekeep, because I think the reality of the fact is, for our generation, and especially for people who are about to graduate or graduated in the past 3 years, the job market is a little bit funky, especially in the industries of like fashion, entertainment, and media that, you know, seem more glamorous and definitely like flashier. But I think the biggest thing that I did was literally going back to the founding of Intersect being like something that I did in high school. It might have not been fashion related yet. Like my goal might have been like, this is so I intern at record labels, because in my mind at that point, I wanted to work in music marketing and I wanted to become a powerhouse in the music industry. And I wanted to have a bunch of internships in college that relate to that. Where I'm going with this is a lot of times people like kind of stay still and get paralyzed because they don't know the exact thing that they want to do or exactly where they're going to end up. So they don't make any moves at all because they don't understand that when it comes to a career journey, an early career, the beauty is in those pivots and like ending up in different places than you originally thought. But you're not going to be able to know what you don't like and get to the next steps unless you just jump in and try stuff.
Yeah.
And so I ended up really not liking working in the music industry. After I interned at Sony Music, I interned at Warner, I interned at Pulse Recording. Like I was out there in LA doing all of that. And then I switched into music tech and I interned music brand marketing at Dolby Laboratories, like Dolby Atmos, Beats by Dre, brand marketing at Apple. And that's where like we started kind of doing some stuff related to like fashion and sports, and it opened me up to different industries. But if I didn't do all of that and then start looking at fashion brands and stuff that like Beats could possibly partner with when I was interning there, then I wouldn't have realized like, you know what, what's it like to work in fashion?
Yeah.
I want to try that next summer.
Yeah.
Then I did the internship and now I'm here. And so I think the biggest thing that I could offer was like, yes, I did as best as I could possibly do in school, but I think something that would surprise people is that I didn't have the highest GPA. I didn't have the highest GPA, and I changed majors a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, I was not this top tier student because the reality of the job market, especially if you want to work in like marketing, brand partnerships in these cool industries, like whatever, is like experience actually will take you further right now. So
Absolutely.
long-winded, but that's my answer.
Yeah. So you clearly were very overly ambitious in college. How has your transition been from college life to corporate life in New York City?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'll say is I feel like I didn't have the biggest transition into corporate because of the way I approached my internships. So I was doing like during the semester internships, which is why I wanted to go to school in a place like LA or New York even, where you can do internships at companies during the semesters. Because if you're at like University of Michigan or like FAMU or something like that, then you kind of have to wait until the summer to like fly somewhere else to do the internship. So you're not eligible for those semester internships that are actually easier to get. That's a hack, so everyone tap into that. But because of that, I was doing full-time college, and then I was like taking night classes and like doing like 40-hour-a-week full-time internships. So it's not fun, it's not for everybody, but I think being true to like what you want and your goals and realizing like at what point in life you want to sacrifice. You're sacrificing during undergrad, you're sacrificing during med school, law school, MBA, whatever. Like in order to do that big stuff, there's gonna have to be a chunk of time where you're really like head down, locked in, and that's what I was doing. And so I got used to being like busy. I got used to being in a corporate environment. I wasn't necessarily used to being and like fulfilled by being in like a school classroom environment. Like my Roman Empire in undergrad was like when I would go to the office. So switching into like an office corporate environment wasn't really new to me. I feel like the corporate flow, the lingo, the personalities, understanding like your boss and your supervisor, which is a big thing, and not taking stuff personally. All of that stuff was fleshed out by like internship number 5, 6. Like I've seen bad, good, all of that. And then on top of that, the place where I'm working, I did return there. So I already was interning there. So I feel like getting adjusted to the company culture was less of the thing. It was more so getting, learning about the new position and stuff. And with that, you also said like living in New York. My internship was at the same company in New York last summer. So it's like I got the perfect little like taste of it and then came back and then now I'm doing it fully, you know?
So you had a pretty smooth transition. So what about like the personal transition of like just transitioning into post-grad life? What have you found is your experience with that? Like, because for me personally, I feel like it's been really interesting just observing how I feel like in college. I feel like academic validation was just such a big thing for me. And then once you graduate, I feel like that form of validation is just so much less significant than it was at one point. So yeah, what has been your experience with that?
Yeah, I think like I understand you for sure. But something that was really interesting for me that I feel like I haven't been able to explain to a lot of people, and I think a lot of people misunderstand about me is like, I actually never really got academic validation. Like, school was not my thing. Like, I did it, and I got it done, and I didn't have a bad GPA, just very, like, decent, you know what I mean? And I was laser focused on the job experience, laser focused on Intersect, building my personal brand to go into my career. A lot of the role models I was looking at were like the Immigrants. As I said before, she didn't go to college.
Yeah.
She didn't go to college, and she's got Good American, Skims, Safely, etc. Like, you don't necessarily need those college classes in order to turn you into a beast, because I truthfully believe that when it comes to like really doing stuff in business, mostly entrepreneurship, but this even can go into like how you work at a company as well, and being the innovative person. They don't teach that in school. Like, I forgot which like white successful old man billionaire said this, but like college and school, they teach you how to be a worker, and then like diving into stuff yourself kind of teaches you how to be like a boss and actually make change and stuff. Like, I'm not saying that school isn't necessary.
Yeah.
I believe in school. And especially if you're getting like a secondary education that teaches you even more, and your career needs that in order to get you to the next level, like, play the game, which is what I did. Like, I did not go to school. I knew how to play the game.
Yeah.
But I didn't like idolize it. And I didn't think I wasn't gonna like do well in life just because like I maybe got an F on a test.
Yeah.
So once again, that wasn't the biggest transition for me, because I've always, which isn't the best thing either, and I'm happy to talk about this, have more so gotten validation from work and career stuff, which is also not the best thing, because that can.
But it's reality,
yeah. So.
No, yeah, you bring up a good point, because for me, like, post-grad has really allowed me to really reflect on my college experience and what it like actually meant to me. And I feel like college was more of a great transitional period. Like, it taught me a lot about relationships and responsibility, but in terms of education, I don't know.
Really learn in all
you
those
know,
classes?
I really do find it hard to like see the value of the practical value, you know what I mean, of like what I was actually learning in those classes. So you do bring up a really, really good point. So in addition to your magazine and your corporate job, you also create content that is centered around being an overly ambitious girl in your 20s. And I love your TikToks, because I feel like I really resonate with the community that you're building of just self-motivated, career-oriented women. And more than that, I really like that you not only highlight the highs associated with being like an overachiever, but also the difficulties that inevitably come with that. So what does being overly ambitious mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's someone that definitely looks at life and gets extremely excited about everything that's out there and all the possibilities of things that you can explore, conquer. Like, when I look at my life, I'm like, you literally only get to do this once. And I feel like that's one TikTok that ended up like blowing up, because like I think a lot of times we go through life, especially in our like early 20s and our teens and our early years, and you think like, oh, I have so much time. And like, while God forbid anything happens, like, I hope we do have so much time. But there's not necessarily so much time to just be sitting there and waiting for things to come your way. And so being overly ambitious to me means like understanding that for you to conquer things and like explore everything and like get the most out of this one opportunity you have to do this stuff, like, means to get up and get out there and like start learning, exploring, like falling, getting back up. Like, I'll tell everyone, like you just said, and thank you for that compliment, I'm very transparent about all of the hardships and all of the rough moments that I've been through. Similar to what you said, I think like college wasn't really this, like, I didn't really party much, like this, that, and the third. Like, I was in a black sorority, and that was as much of like a normal college experience that I had. Besides that, I was really just experiencing things that I needed in order to be the woman that I, like, in order to get to that first step of being the woman that I pray about becoming. I had to learn a lot of stuff, and I feel like God was putting me through these like rounds and rounds of like hard obstacles in order to like learn a lot more about myself and become who I am today, who just flew from LA to New York and started this new chapter.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, you're very vulnerable on social media about those hardships that come with, you know, being overly ambitious. So how do you deal with the inevitable burnout that comes with being an overly ambitious girl?
Yeah, I definitely I kind of hit it this last semester of college. I hit it pretty hard. This was the only year of college where I wasn't doing an internship. I was working on Intersect full time and then content creation and then trying to like knock out school and then applying to jobs. And that's a job in itself, as everyone knows.
Yes.
So and with that, I did the entrepreneurship and the content creating full time. And I think something that's really interesting with those two that I didn't necessarily experience with like my corporate stuff is like, it's less of like, you're not getting paid every 2 weeks, you know, like when it's your own business or it's content creation, like you have to scrap for stuff, you know, especially if you're like a slow and steady growth person. You're not like one of the Monets or the Alex Earls or whatever, like you have to keep pushing. Like you might set out and say like, oh, I'm going to post 5 TikTok videos per week, or even be the person that's like, I'm going to post 2 a day. And they might keep flopping. And like, even with me, like I don't have that many followers, but I have like 50K on there. And I feel like I'll be like, how do I have all these followers? And then this video only did 1,000. Like, let me delete this. Like stuff like that just started like bothering me. And then I'm like, oh, and then you go down this whole rabbit hole of like, am I even getting paid for it? Like, why am I putting so much time into this? Like, when is this going to get better? With Intersect too, like, yes, I started a digital publication, but I'll be transparent and say like, another thing you need to be open to when you want to start a magazine or a media company is like how long it might take in order for you to monetize it. So what people don't realize is that a lot of people have paid for Intersect or even just like paying for subscriptions to run Intersect has been from that money from the internships. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even have the Nepo baby situation where like the parents were going to completely fund your new business and give you like, I'm going to give you X $1,000. No, I was like scrap. So that scrappiness that comes with content creation and entrepreneurship, that's where the burnout really came from. Like, I feel like, yeah, you could burn out from corporate, but your own thing, that's what will really burn you out.
I know. And then I also think about, you know, the people who kind of use their corporate jobs to help fund their own ventures, or they use it to build their networks for their businesses. You know, that might seem like it's the epitome of like working smarter, not harder. But at the same time, is it really? Because I feel like that's one of the hardest things that you can put yourself through, like working a very demanding job, but then simultaneously running a business. But I don't know. I guess you have to pick your poison in this life.
Like you said, like it's rough, but it's that sense of scrappiness. And that's why I feel like one other thing I'll say about that is I think our generation, and we had an article about this on Intersect, but there's like an entrepreneurship epidemic. Like everyone just thinks like, I should be an entrepreneur. And it's like, not everyone's meant to be an entrepreneur. And you might start whatever that is, that business, that brand, that magazine or whatever. And when you really see how hard it can get, especially if you're doing it from scratch and you don't have that many connections and that much financial support, it's not for everyone. And then it's like, who's left standing after the stuff really hits the fan?
No, I love that. And it's important for entrepreneurs to be honest about what it takes to start a business. I also love your Lovers and Friends series where you talk about relationships, because I think it's really easy to forget about the importance of relationships when you're chasing these career goals. So how do you balance all that you do while also maintaining a social life and a love life?
I love that you noticed that I would try to like name all my TikTok series, but yeah, like you said, Lovers and Friends is just where I talk about like dating and friendships in your early 20s. I think like I'll start with friendships. I have always had a really strong community of friends. And I think that that is such a blessing. And I think that a lot of times we take that for granted. Like that community of platonic friendships is so beautiful and so important. Because I think a lot of times we idolize romantic relationships and then we don't look and we think the grass is greener. But then like you have people who are in a romantic relationship and they're like, I wish I even had like a group of friends. I wish I had like one best friend. Like I'm always stuck with my partner. And so like you said, not like one's not better than the other, because like I'm not saying that a girl doesn't want some love too, but I think don't overlook those platonic relationships, because that support and that love is so strong and it's so unique to what it is. Then when it comes to dating and relationships, I think that dating in LA is not a place for a Black woman to really date that much, especially if you're a black woman who also likes black men. I have dated outside of my race, and I'm open to dating outside of my race, but I would love to end up with a black man, and I like, you know, the idea of continuing like a strong black legacy in my family. People don't know this, but I actually studied like African American studies in college as well, like along with marketing. So I don't know. I love that. But in LA, it was really hard to find that. And that's something that you'll hear a lot of people talking about. I think it's better in New York. I'm not saying it's perfect anywhere right now, but I just didn't have the best experience. So I had some fun, but it really fostered a space to kind of focus on work and school because I didn't have any long-term relationships there.
So what has your dating experience been like since you moved to New York? Is it giving like Sex in the City, or is it a little more complicated to navigate, you know, prioritizing relationships and career goals at the same time?
Yeah, I think like another reason why I feel like dating was funky with me like in LA and like throughout the past years was also me being in this weird space of being like, I own a business. I was working full time, even if they were internships, and I was a student. And I really couldn't be categorized into just the college student. And my intellectual skills, my maturity, my emotional maturity, and all of that, like, kind of led me into liking like people who were a little bit older or older, because a lot of people like my same level, I couldn't really have conversations with them because they couldn't keep up. And so I feel like when I came here last summer to intern, I had some good dating experiences with people who were like a little bit older, and another, just like, I feel like New York men, like there might be a lot of things wrong, but for someone who is a hustler and wants someone who is very career driven and aggressive with what they do and like bold, knows what they want, a little bit
It's
more
a good
intentional,
environment for you, yeah.
I thrive a little bit better here. And I find that the men that I've been on dates with, even if it didn't turn into something else, it has been a lot more of that here and a lot more passive in LA. And so coming here so far, I've had a good experience. I guess you can say I've had my Carrie moments in New York already. But I don't know.
No,
like,
I love that for you. That's great. That I can relate to that. I agree. I feel like when you are an overly ambitious girl, a career-oriented person, you need somebody who can match that. And New York is the place to find that for sure. I feel like I've also been going through like this personal renaissance of my own of like, I don't know, just reassessing my values in life, right? Because I don't want to wake up, and I'm sure you've had similar thoughts. I don't want to wake up one day and find that my entire personality revolves around being hardworking. You know, like I feel like that's all well and good, but there's more to life than just like being productive.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So
for sure.
and I have to remind myself of that, like pretty often, like to just go out and have fun and date and like be a 22-year-old. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and to care about relationships and friendships too. Like, I'm not that person at all. I feel like that's why I have that series, because I don't want people to think like I'm that overly ambitious person who doesn't put any time or care
and the
about
more
dating.
I've gotten to know you, it's like you're very multifaceted in that way. And me too. And like and also adopting hobbies, right, that are also like not work related. Like that's becoming more important to me than just like working all the time. So yeah, is this something that you think about as somebody who's overly ambitious, and what are some ways that you ensure that you're building like a well-rounded identity?
Yeah, I love that question. I think that, like you said, first of all, there's like the social stuff. I think it's like very important. Like something I've also prioritized when moving here is like, yeah, I already have been on dates and stuff, and I think that's like a part of it because it's important to put yourself out there and start meeting people. Because I think something that people disregard is like, go on those dates, because some people I've gone on a date with have ended up like my friends, and then you meet new people through that. So it's a great way to meet people, actually, if you're not the girl who looks at every single date and every single person you start talking to as this needs to be my husband or nothing. Like, I am a very firm believer, and I tell people all the time, like when they're like 20 and they say, and it's not for like religious purposes, this and the third, I'm dating for marriage. I'm sorry, it might be controversial. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Because you need to know what you want. You need to learn more about yourself and who you are in relationships and dating. And the only way you're going to learn that is by experiences. Now, if you're one of the people who have ended up in a long-term relationship and it's just been that one person, then it is what it is, whatever. But if you're just sitting there waiting for this magic person to come and you're looking at everyone as like, if this is not like marriage only, you're not going to learn a lot about what you want and what you don't want, and you're going to be in this circle. Because I've dated a lot, I feel like I know what things I could definitely not deal with and what things I need when it comes to like not even just marriage, but anything that will turn into a long-term relationship.
That's so important.
Yeah. So I think I've prioritized like dating. I've definitely prioritized friendships, going on girl dates, meeting new girls like yourself. Like that's important. Like that, you have to continue that community. A lot of my community is like in LA, so I'm building a new community out here. And then, like you said, hobbies. I'm a Pilates girly, whatever. Like we all love it. I don't think fitness has to be the only type of hobby that you do though. So I'm looking for other things. But like you said, I definitely think about all of that, not just work, because I would not feel like a successful person. Like people like relate successful person with successful at work. But my mom taught me when I was younger, she said success is like just like doing what you want to do. Like if somebody said, I want to be a bus driver, and they became a bus driver, they're successful. If somebody said, I want to become a stay-at-home mom, and they become a stay-at-home mom, they're successful.
That's so interesting. My dad gave me the same exact advice.
Exactly.
Of just like, you have to define success for yourself. And like, once you decide what success is for yourself, that's the only way that you'll feel satisfied. Otherwise, the goalpost is just going to keep moving and moving, and you're never going to, feel satisfied. I love that. So to close out this interview, I just want to ask, what is one piece of advice that you can give to other overly ambitious girls who might be on similar journeys as you?
The most ambitious thing you can do is to work on getting to know yourself more. If you get to know yourself more, you will make decisions that are way more aligned with your true identity. And you'll be able to zone out all of this crazy TikTok advice. That's even me as someone who gives advice on TikTok. I'll say, you'll be able to really know what speaks to you and do things because you want to do it. Not because so-and-so on TikTok or one of your friends who's the same age as you but swears they know more about life said so.
Using discernment, right?
Yes, or even some of these mentors in the workspace that are trying to teach you something about your career. Like, all of that outside noise is great, but the best thing you could possibly do is work on getting to know you. And this will really impact all of your decisions, whether they're friendship related, like we said, romantic, or work life, like hobbies, whatever. Like, you will become that well-rounded, more successful person because, like we said, success, you define it. You can't define what success is for you if you don't know yourself. That's the first step.
That is amazing advice. Wow. Thank you so much, Drew. Thank you so much for coming in and sharing your journey with us. I really appreciate it. Guys, make sure to keep up with Drew on social media and check out Intersect Magazine. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and tune in next week for another episode of How She Did It.